Every single morning, before your alarm goes off, before the first barrel of oil is burned, before a single fighter jet lifts off any American airbase, 21 million barrels of oil pass silently through a stretch of water just 21 miles wide. That is the Strait of Hormuz. And in 2026, the world discovered something that Washington never wanted to admit out loud. The most powerful military on Earth cannot control it. To understand why America is vulnerable here, you need to understand what this strait actually is. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a body of water. It is the jugular vein of the global economy. Roughly 20% of all the world's oil supply passes through this single, narrow choke point. Saudi Arabia's oil goes through here. Iraq's oil goes through here. Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, all of it funneled through 21 miles of water that Iran can see from its own coastline. And here is where it gets dangerous. Iran doesn't just border the strait. Iran commands it. The northern coastline belongs entirely to Tehran. They have missile batteries dug into mountainsides, submarines lurking in shallow waters, and drone swarms that can be launched in under 4 minutes. The United States Navy, the most advanced fleet ever constructed by human civilization, has been sitting in those waters for decades, unable to change the fact. Most people imagine war in the Strait of Hormuz as American aircraft carriers versus Iranian frigates, a clean and predictable confrontation. That is exactly what Iran wants you to think, because that is not how they plan to fight. Tehran has spent 40 years building a strategy specifically designed to make America's trillion-dollar military irrelevant. It is called asymmetric warfare, and in this strait, it is terrifyingly effective. Iran possesses the Noor anti-ship missile, a Chinese-derived weapon capable of hitting a moving vessel from over 200 kilometers away. They have the Fatah 110, a ballistic missile accurate enough to strike a carrier deck. They have hundreds of fast attack boats armed with torpedoes, able to swarm a convoy faster than point defense systems can track them. And then there are the mines. The Persian Gulf floor is shallow. Iran has stockpiled thousands of naval mines, devices that can be deployed in darkness in hours, sealing the strait like a door slammed shut. In 1988, during Operation Praying Mantis, a single Iranian mine nearly sank the USS Samuel B. Roberts. One mine. One frigate. Nearly catastrophic. Now imagine thousands. In 2026, the world stopped pretending. What began as escalating sanctions, drone strikes on proxy forces, and shadowy attacks on Gulf shipping crossed a threshold that could not be uncrossed. When Iranian-aligned forces struck a U.S. logistics convoy in the region, Washington responded with airstrikes on IRGC naval positions. Tehran's answer was immediate. Within 48 hours, Iran activated what military analysts had long called the doomsday option for global oil markets. They didn't declare war on America. They mined the strait. Quietly, systematically, in the dead of night, 40 tankers stopped moving. Insurance companies halted coverage on all Gulf vessels. Oil prices didn't rise. They detonated. Brent crude crossed $180 a barrel in 72 hours. Stock markets in Tokyo, London, and New York opened to scenes of raw panic. And there, in the center of the Persian Gulf, sat the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, the most powerful war-fighting tool in human history, anchored by geography and paralyzed by the math. Because clearing mines in shallow, hostile waters, while Iranian missiles are pre-targeted on your coordinates, while swarms of drones patrol the surface, is not a mission. It is a funeral. The Pentagon had war-gamed this scenario 17 times since 2008. They lost every single time. Here is the uncomfortable truth that no American admiral wants to say on camera. The Strait of Hormuz is not a battlefield where America's strengths matter. America dominates the open ocean. America owns the sky at 40,000 feet. America's submarines are ghosts, but the strait is 21 miles wide. The waters are shallow, neutralizing submarine advantage. The coastline is honeycombed with Iranian positions, and every American asset has to pass through the same narrow kill zone. Military strategist Thomas P.M. Barnett wrote about this nearly 2 decades ago, that the U.S. military is optimized for power projection, not constrained corridor warfare. The Hormuz Strait is a corridor, a gauntlet, a trap with oil on the other side. And in 2026, the world watched in real time as the United States was forced to make a choice no superpower ever wants to face: escalate and risk a regional war that collapses the global economy, or negotiate and signal to every adversary on Earth that there are places American power simply does not reach. In 2002, a U.S. military simulation called Millennium Challenge had a retired Marine general simulate Iran-style asymmetric tactics. He sank 16 American warships in the first day. The Pentagon restarted the simulation with new rules and still barely won. The Strait of Hormuz has no alternative route. Pipelines bypass only a fraction of the volume. There is no plan B for the global oil market. Iran's drone program, now one of the most advanced in the world, was built largely using captured American drone technology. A closure of the strait lasting just 2 weeks would trigger fuel shortages across Europe and Asia severe enough to threaten civil order in multiple nations. And perhaps most chilling of all, Iran has never needed to actually close the strait. The threat alone, the mere possibility, is enough to hold the global economy hostage on any day Tehran chooses. That is not weakness. That is leverage. And it is leverage that no aircraft carrier can sink. In the shadow of all these strategies and simulations, the missiles and the mines and the maps, there are people. Sailors who left home ports not knowing what waited. Fishermen whose livelihoods disappeared overnight when shipping lanes went dark. Families in Pakistan, India, and East Africa who watched food prices double because the oil stopped moving and the supply chains collapsed behind it. This is what a modern war looks like. It doesn't always begin with an invasion. It doesn't always end with a surrender. Sometimes it is. 21 miles of water, government that has nothing left to lose, and a world that suddenly realizes it forgot to ask whether the most important choke point on Earth was actually being guarded or just being watched. The Strait of Hormuz will not be resolved by a treaty. It will not be solved by a carrier group. It will not be tamed by the most sophisticated military in history, because it was never a military problem. It is a geographical truth. It is a geopolitical reality. And it is a mirror, reflecting back at the world's superpower the limits of what raw power can actually control. 21 miles, the distance that could rewrite the American century. If it hasn't already. Thanks for watching.